From A to Z, it's plain to see. This podcast is about people in my industry. Writers, designers, social media managers. Don't forget the data miners. HR, PR, find out who they are and how they made it this far. From A to Z, talk about your family, talk about the goals you reach, talk about the plans you see. Let's get it. Welcome aboard. I'm your host, PK Mwini, and this is the From A to Z podcast.
Welcome everybody to From Ad to Z. This is the maiden journey, and I think it's only right that I started off with somebody who started me out in the ad industry. Elena is the person who put me in the game. I remember being a young whippersnapper coming for an interview at Aqua. Before we get there, let's start right at the beginning. Please tell us about who Elena is.
So I started my career in book publishing. So I studied publishing, went to the UK, worked in academic book publishing, and that's where I got involved in digital. So it was that's when social media and online was taking off, and started working in that, moved back to South Africa and got into the agency space. And then from there, the rest is history. I think it was just a matter of starting, really hands-on from a social and digital perspective. And here we are.
Yeah. And what about your upbringing, right from the beginning? This show is called From Ad to Z, so we're talking about the individual as well as the person once they got into the ad industry. So please tell us about a young Elena. What was a young Elena like? What was your upbringing like?
So I'm from a traditional Greek family. Very hardworking grandparents. Came from Greece during the war. Your typical story of opening up a cafe and fish and chip shop. So I'm third generation Greek. Grew up in a warm, but also I think because my grandparents weren't educated, education was a big thing for my parents, and which was passed down to me and my sister. So I think and our family. So I think education was key. I come from a family who's very in the medical space. So my thing was, I must study medicine, and once I started looking into it, I was like, just not for me. So did a Bachelor of Arts at Wits University, and then did my honours in publishing. And from never ever dreamed of working in advertising, always wanted to work for a book publisher, and love reading, love of books, always wanted to work at Penguin or Random House, and got involved in advertising. And I couldn't think of myself anywhere else. I always heard of advertising and advertising agencies, but it was always very foreign to me. And now I'm in the trenches.
So that advertising journey, how exactly did that start? Like you said, you studied at Wits. Take us through, what was your first job? What was that like?
So my first job was, I worked at Exclusive Books, shock horror. And then I worked for a company who were the reps for international book publishers, which I then worked for one of the publishers when I moved to the UK. Really starting from the groundwork. There's no job is beneath anyone, and I think it's just you've really got to start with the basics to really work your way up. So that's where I started, and my first position in online was a community manager. And I remember the publisher I worked for in the UK said, we've got a role for a community manager. This must have been, I moved back from London 9 years ago, so this must have been 10 years ago. I was offered a role as a community manager, and I remember looking at my manager going, I don't even know what that is. What is a community manager?
At that time.
Yeah. And literally what I started doing was managing communities, but academic communities. So that it wasn't on social media, it was specific online portals of people, like-minded people coming together where information was shared. So really the heart of community management, which then evolved into managing social media. So that was my first, and then intro into the online space, and then moving back, I went and worked at Native as a community manager, where I did community management for a large financial institution. So it was really dealing with complaints, queries, and then but part of that was, it wasn't just a customer service role, it was identifying opportunities for the brand online. And I think that's where the kind of nuggets lie in terms of the beauty of it, and being able to influence how a brand is positioned online.
That's where the insights are.
Exactly.
Starts with the community manager.
So I think it was a really exciting place to be, and then just getting involved with different brands, and I love working on big brands, and I think that it's exciting, and there's so much opportunity, especially in South Africa and across the continent.
So when you were younger, was there one advert or any type of ad? When we say advert, I mean, be it a billboard, radio, TVC, you know what I mean, digital. Is there any one ad that sticks out in your mind from your childhood, like while you were maybe driving on a road trip and you heard a radio ad or a billboard you drove past?
So I think 2 ads stick out. It's the Coca-Cola. I think the Coca-Cola Christmas ad, the big truck, and I would think Sassel, the Glug Glug ad. I think those 2 stand out for me. Yeah.
You are the former social and content lead at Aqua. Do you have any advice for a team lead, be it a strat team lead, a content team lead, a dev team, or any team lead to help nurture and grow their team? Because I remember you were very good at that. How did you do it?
So I think it's a matter of understanding what everyone's doing, what everyone's role is, and being able to pick up the pieces if people aren't available. I think to have also a high level overview of what's going on across the board, across accounts, being able to navigate where key strengths lie in order to move people around. And then I would say that to understand what's happening in the industry and to be able to motivate the team accordingly, so that, you know, there's this constant need for knowledge sharing, but also for the team to be curious, because without being curious, and I think in this industry that's really, really key, is you've got to be curious to really be at the top of your game.
Mm. So in growing other people, you grow yourself. How do you feel like you have grown in the past 5 years?
So I would say it's putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. You've got to get out your comfort zone. You've got to do work that you may never have thought you would be doing. So I think, you know, previously, like you said, I was lead on social media content. I've now developed my skill set more from a digital perspective and digital marketing. So I think that you have to push yourself, because there's so much out there, and in order to provide the best service and the best insights, you have to have a holistic understanding of what's going on. Mm.
So moving forward into present day, I want to make sure I say this name correctly. You head up Proél Advertising.
No, Proél.
Proél Advertising.
Everyone says
Proél Consulting, sorry.
And there's
Proél.
the accent on the E.
That's why I thought it. Okay, cool. Proél.
I'm glad you said that, but it's Proél. And it's from my surname and first name, so Proél.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool. So tell me what goes into consulting for social and digital and big brands, like you say.
So I think it's going in with an objective mindset for the brand, being able to also adapt for what is required and not go in with stock standard approach and templatized approaches. Every brand's different, every brand works differently, so it's just to understand those ways of working and nuances. And I think it's to take something that is going to change their business and something that they weren't doing before, and something that's going to drive impact, and you want to add value. And if you're not adding any value or making any impact, then I don't feel like I've done my job properly.
Mm-hmm. So in the last couple of years, is there any one piece of work that stands out for you that you've done that you're super proud of? Could be award-winning, doesn't have to be. I know you are very award-winning, from the digital awards to a couple Luri certificates and everything like that. What's one piece of work that you're super proud of years later?
So I'll be very honest, there isn't one specific piece of work, but I would say where over the years, if I've delivered a strategy for a client, and I would say a big client where they didn't have any online presence, and I've done a digital strategy for them, and they see the impact it can make on their business, and they understand that I've understood their target market, I've understood the channels and where they should be engaging. If that resonates with them, then I've done my job. So I would say those, it's no big creative idea. It's the kind of nuts and bolts that go into what's going to impact their brand online.
Each piece of work is like your special baby.
Yeah.
I get that fully. Now you've traveled a bit. You were fortunate to go to South by Southwest a couple of years ago. That's always been my dream.
Yeah.
I don't know, now with COVID, how am I going to ever get that done? I don't know, but we'll see about that. Please tell us about that experience.
So that was amazing. I think I've always wanted to go, and I was lucky enough to go. And I was really blown away by the caliber of speakers that were there and how much I learned. And I just remember looking at the agenda and thinking, I wish I was more than one person so that I could be able to split myself across the different talks. So I think it was just the vibe, the energy.
Sorry, what year was it?
It was 2016. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and it happens in Austin, Texas, which is quite a tech hub. So I think there's it's just because of the place and the city it is, it really lends itself to being a very inspirational place. And I just came back with a lot of insight and ideas. And I think, sometimes you can attend a conference where you may not have learned anything. And I think there was just so much to take away. So yeah, the caliber of speakers and the insights you can gain are huge.
Mm. Is there anything that they said in 2016 that, hey, in 2020, watch out, that actually came to fruition?
Not that I can recall, but I remember attending a talk by the founder of Giphy and how relevant GIFs still are. And I think it's, as much as digital is, things change and evolve, there are things that still are relevant years later. And I think, a lot of the time people will say, well, this channel's dead, that channel's dead, or whatever the case is. You've also got to allow for the fact that there are a lot of formats and channels that don't just die. They evolve with how people use them and they integrate into other platforms. So yeah, it's interesting to look back and go, well, actually, since then, I can't say that, yes, the way I would say channels use their data is a much bigger conversation piece. But I wouldn't say Facebook is dead since 2016. I just think it's evolved in the way people use it.
Okay. I don't know if it's Mark Lives or Mark Lives. Is it Mark Lives?
Mark Lives, yeah.
Mark Lives, sorry, Mark Lives. You wrote an article for them recently around lockdown, corona, pandemic, and brands in South Africa and the communication. Now, I think it was very important. And you highlighted that not everybody has to say something. Not everybody did say something, but those that did do it, obviously they put a lot of work into their communication, especially at that time. Please tell us a couple of brands that you think stood out and did super well. We won't talk about who did not well because we don't know who will be our client tomorrow. So tell us who did well. So
I think the brands that did well were the ones that people needed at the time from a retail perspective. And it's the ones that came to the party. And I think it was a Pick and Pay video that was really relevant to people's situations and circumstances. And we went through a crisis. And I think it's the brands that really spoke to that, where the brand could resonate with their audience, was key. It wasn't these brands coming through and interrupting and being tone deaf to the situation. But it wasn't just brands. And I think off that article, it was also individuals. So going back to my publishing days, if I look at how authors approached it, it was brilliant because they were giving their intellectual property away to people who were locked down, and it was giving people a kind of a creative income type of thing where you could access their content online, and I think that was valuable. And ultimately, it definitely resulted in sales for them post that. But it was just brands and individuals who understood the landscape and didn't try too hard to interrupt people's circumstances.
So I think once the book reading bug bites you, it's always with you. I can imagine you're still an avid reader now. What are you reading currently?
So I don't have much time to read, but I'm currently reading a book called American Dirt. So it's, I'm not even halfway through yet, but it is about a family in Mexico who are killed off by gangsters, and the mom and son are left behind, and they're escaping across the border. So yeah, quite fascinating, but not through it yet.
You don't get much reading time. Do you get any Netflix or TV time in?
Occasionally, yeah.
What do you watch?
The Crown on Netflix, yeah.
Oh.
It's brilliant.
Check it out.
Check it out. It's good. Yeah.
Right now, when you pulled up to the offices that we are at right now, what was playing in your car? What music was playing in your car?
I think I was listening to the news, so there wasn't music.
Okay.
And before that I had Christmas carols playing for my kids on the way to school. so that was what was on.
Okay, cool. We're going to move into the quick quiz section.
Okay.
It's just a this or that type of thing.
Yeah.
Just answer honestly as you can, I guess.
Okay.
Pears or apples?
Apples.
Why?
I think pears can be too flowery.
True, because if you had said pears, I was going to be like, literally, why pears? Because you can never know. You never know. You could chew into a pear and it could be like chalky or said. Like,
an apple can be flowery too, but the chances of a pear are higher. I just ate an apple before this and it wasn't flowery. So
an apple a day. Elton John or David Bowie?
Elton John.
Why Elton
Love
John?
Elton John. Saw him perform live and in London. His music's amazing. I grew up with his music. He's a real star. Huge fan.
Okay. What's your favorite Elton John song?
Gosh, now you've...
It's tough to say, I know.
It's tough to say. Gosh, no, you've stumped me.
All of them.
All of them.
Next one, library or museum? This is library or museum?
Museum.
What type of museum? Natural history or like art?
Both. I cannot... I've done natural history. It's incredible. And Museum of Modern Art in both New York and London are world class. So it's both.
Okay. Last final bonus question. What year was Mendoza's Nkalagata released? Was it 1998 or 2000? Nkalagata. Sorry,
I used to dance to that in high school.
Yeah, I think I remember you at an office party back in the day. Nkalagata.
98.
And the answer is 2000.
Really?
Right on the millennium. Where were you in 2000?
2000, I was in Standard 9. I was getting close to matric.
All right.
Don't really remember.
In 2000, I was in grade 2. I remember it vividly because I remember the new millennium. There was that song, ba-da-da-da, to the east side. I remember that song.
But I remember everyone thought everything would shut down.
Yes, exactly. The bug,
the
Y2K bug.
Yeah, Y2K.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Did not happen at all.
But no one predicted COVID. So.
Oh, man. 20 years later. Hey. Oh, no.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Anyways, thank you so much, Elena, for joining me.
This was awesome. Thank you.
On From A to Z. This was the maiden journey on this. It's not a boat, it's a ship. This is a ship. We're leaving the dock and we are going far out into the seas of advertising, digital. We're going to be talking to our peers, my past colleagues, my bosses, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for joining me on From Ad to Z. I've been your host, PK Mokweni. We out.